The new reality of value. Look around carefully. The world is changing faster than most people are willing to admit. Artificial intelligence is writing emails. Automation is handling repetitive tasks. Global competition is putting pressure on salaries, roles, and entire industries. And for the first time in modern history, simply being good enough may no longer be enough. For decades, many people believed that if they followed the rules, worked hard, stayed polite, and did what they were told, security would follow. But that old agreement is breaking. Because if your work can be clearly described in a checklist, someone will try to optimize it. If large parts of your job can be reduced to repeatable instructions, someone will try to automate them. And if your only advantage is that you are available, obedient, and average, then eventually you will be compared only by cost. This is the new reality of value. But this video is not about fear. It is not about blaming technology, companies, or the economy. It is about understanding one brutal but useful truth. You do not become irreplaceable by working harder than everyone else. You become irreplaceable by becoming harder to define, harder to copy, and harder to lose. The most valuable people are not always the smartest in the room. They are not always the loudest, the most experienced, or the most educated. They are the people who solve problems others avoid. They stay calm when others panic. They connect ideas that others keep separate. They take ownership when others protect themselves. And they create clarity in places where everyone else sees confusion. This is the psychology of high value. This is how you stop being just another resource and start becoming someone people do not want to lose. Stop competing in crowded categories. Most people make the same mistake. They try to become the best at one single thing. The best designer, the best analyst, the best engineer, the best salesperson, the best manager. And there is nothing wrong with mastery. But in a crowded world, being good at one skill often places you inside a huge category of similar people. You become comparable, and the moment you become comparable, the market starts asking dangerous questions. Who is cheaper? Who is faster? Who has more availability? Who can do the same job with less friction? The way out is not always to become number one in one narrow field. The way out is skill stacking. Skill stacking means combining several strong abilities into one rare profile. Maybe you understand technology, but you can also communicate with non-technical people. Maybe you are analytical, but you also understand human emotions. Maybe you are creative, but you can also execute with discipline. Maybe you understand operations, but you can also explain strategy clearly. Individually, each skill may not make you unique, but together they create a category of one. That is where real value begins. Because organizations do not only need specialists, they need translators, they need connectors, they need people who can move between worlds. The person who can understand the technical problem, explain it to leadership, calm the client, and turn the situation into an action plan is not easy to replace. That person is not just doing a task. That person is reducing chaos. And reducing chaos is one of the most valuable skills in the modern world. Emotional stability is a competitive advantage. In theory, business is about numbers, systems, and strategy. In reality, most problems are also emotional problems: fear, ego, pressure, miscommunication, status, trust, blame. A project rarely fails only because of information. It often fails because people stop communicating honestly. A team rarely collapses only because of workload. It collapses because stress turns into conflict, avoidance, and silence. This is why emotional stability is so valuable. The high-value person is not the one who never feels pressure. The high-value person is the one who can feel pressure and still remain useful. They do not escalate every problem into drama. They do not make people afraid to tell the truth. They do not bring panic into an already difficult situation. Instead, they become the calm point in the room. When everyone is defensive, they ask better questions. When everyone is blaming, they look for the real cause. When everyone is overwhelmed, they separate facts from emotions. This creates trust. And trust is not soft. Trust is operational power. When people trust you, they tell you problems earlier. They share information more honestly. They involve you before things become critical. That means you can solve issues before they become expensive. In the age of automation, emotional stability becomes even more important. Because machines can process information, but people still need someone they trust when the situation is uncertain, political, emotional, or high stakes. The person who brings clarity and calm under pressure becomes valuable far beyond their job description. Solve the problems. No one is named yet. Replaceable people wait for instructions. Valuable people notice what is broken before someone officially complains. This is one of the biggest differences between average performers and high-value people. Most people operate only inside assigned tasks. They wait for the email, they wait for the meeting, they wait for the manager to tell them what matters. But many of the most valuable problems are invisible at first. A process that wastes 10 minutes every day. A communication gap that causes repeated confusion. A report nobody trusts. A handoff that keeps failing. A client concern that everyone is pretending not to see. These problems often do not appear dramatic, but over time, they quietly drain time, money, energy, and trust. The high-value person sees these gaps. They do not say, "That is not my job." They ask, "Why does this keep happening? Where is the friction? Who is waiting on whom? What information is missing? What small fix would make everyone faster?" This is how invisible value is created, not by waiting for a crisis, but by preventing one. And the interesting thing is this: when you solve invisible problems, people may not always understand exactly what you did, but they feel the difference. The team moves faster, meetings become clearer, mistakes happen less often, leaders feel less pressure. That is when your value becomes deeply embedded. You are no longer just completing tasks, you are improving the system. And the person who improves the system becomes much harder to replace than the person who only works inside it. Take ownership without playing the hero. Responsibility is rare, not because people are lazy, but because responsibility is psychologically expensive. It means risk. It means visibility. It means you may be blamed. It means you may have to fix something you did not fully cause. That is why many people avoid ownership. They protect themselves with phrases like, "I was not told," "That was not my scope," "I sent the email," "I am waiting for someone else," "Nobody confirmed." Sometimes these statements are true, but high-value people understand something deeper. Ownership does not always mean blame. Ownership means refusing to let the problem float in the air with no one responsible for moving it forward. This does not mean becoming a martyr. It does not mean doing everyone else's job. It does not mean accepting unfair blame. Real ownership is not chaos. Real ownership is structure. It sounds like this: here is the issue. Here is what we know. Here is what is missing. Here is who needs to respond. Here is the next action. Here is the risk if we do nothing. That kind of ownership makes people feel safe, because you are not pretending everything is fine. You are also not creating panic. You are taking the problem out of confusion and putting it into motion. This is why ownership creates leadership, not because you have a title, but because people start trusting you with uncertainty. And in any organization, the person who can be trusted with uncertainty becomes extremely valuable. Reliability is rarer than talent. Talent attracts attention. Reliability builds trust. Many people are talented when they are inspired. Many people perform well when conditions are perfect. Many people can deliver once under pressure when everyone is watching. But high-value people are different. They deliver consistently, not perfectly, not magically, not without ever making mistakes, but consistently enough that people stop worrying. That is the hidden value of reliability. You reduce the mental load of everyone around you. Your manager does not need to chase you. Your team does not need to double-check everything. Your clients do not need to wonder whether you disappeared. Your colleagues know that if you say something will be done, it will either be done, or you will communicate early if something changes. That last part matters. Reliability is not pretending you can do everything. Reliability is honest communication before the problem becomes a surprise. Unreliable people create uncertainty. Reliable people create peace of mind, and peace of mind is valuable because every organization is full of invisible stress, deadlines, approvals, budgets, clients, internal politics, unexpected problems. If your presence reduces that stress, you become more than useful. You become trusted, and trust compounds over time. Protect your attention like capital. The modern world is designed to break your focus. Notifications, messages, meetings, short videos, endless feeds, constant interruptions. Most people are busy all day but rarely deeply focused. They answer quickly, they react constantly, they jump between tasks, they confuse motion with progress, but difficult problems do not surrender to scattered attention. Complex work requires depth. To think clearly, you need uninterrupted time. To solve hard problems, you need concentration. To create something meaningful, you need mental space. This is where deep work becomes a serious advantage. A focused person can sometimes solve in 3 hours what a distracted person keeps touching for 3 weeks. Not because they are superhuman, but because their attention is not leaking everywhere. High-value people protect their focus because they understand that attention is not just a personal habit, it is economic power. Your ability to concentrate determines the quality of problems you can solve, and the quality of problems you can solve determines the level of value you can create. If your day is controlled by noise, your future will be shaped by other people's priorities. But if you can create blocks of real focus, even in a noisy world, you begin to separate yourself from the crowd. Communicate so clearly that people can act. Many intelligent people remain undervalued because they cannot communicate their value. They understand the problem, but they explain it in a way that creates more confusion. They provide too much detail, or too little context, or no recommendation, or they speak in technical language that only people like them understand. High-value communication is different. It creates action. The valuable person can take a messy situation and make it simple without making it shallow. They can explain what happened, why it matters, what the risk is, what options exist, what they recommend, what needs to happen next. This is not just communication. This is leadership, because clarity reduces fear. When people understand the situation, they can make decisions. When they understand the risk, they can prioritize. When they understand the next step, they can move. The person who creates clarity becomes the person others look to when things become complicated. And that is a powerful position. Because in a world full of information, clarity is rare. Adapt before you are forced to. The most dangerous sentence in any career is, "This is how we have always done it." Experience is valuable, but only when it stays alive. The moment experience becomes resistance, it turns into a liability. High-value people respect what worked in the past, but they do not worship it. They understand that tools change, markets change, expectations change, technology changes, the definition of value changes. Adaptability does not mean chasing every trend. It means being willing to learn before you are desperate. It means asking, what is changing in my industry? Which parts of my work are becoming easier to automate? Which skills are becoming more valuable? What do younger people understand that I may be ignoring? What old strengths can I combine with new tools? The adaptable person does not panic when the world changes. They study the change. They experiment early. They become useful in the transition. And in times of transition, useful people become very valuable. Because when everyone else is confused, the adaptable person becomes a guide. Become difficult to replace. Becoming irreplaceable does not mean becoming perfect. It does not mean working every hour. It does not mean sacrificing your health. It does not mean saying yes to everything. In fact, people who try to become irreplaceable by overworking often become exhausted, resentful, and invisible. Real value is built differently. You become hard to replace when your skills connect in a rare way, when your presence reduces chaos, when people trust your judgment under pressure, when you solve problems before they explode, when you communicate clearly, when you adapt faster than the system around you, when your word means something. The goal is not to become the best copy of someone else. The goal is to become the only person who combines your experience, your judgment, your discipline, your emotional intelligence, and your ability to act. That is where value becomes personal. That is where you stop competing only on price, speed, or availability. And that is where you become more than replaceable labor. You become a source of stability, clarity, and momentum. In the age of AI, average tasks will keep getting cheaper, but human judgment, trust, responsibility, and deep understanding will become more important. So do not just ask, how do I keep my job? Ask a better question. What kind of value would be painful to lose? Build that, and you will not need to call yourself irreplaceable. Other people will feel it. If you found this video valuable, subscribe to Value Psychology for more insights on psychology, confidence, and personal growth.